Hello, friends. This is Christopher Davis-Shannon, and today, yet again, I have the pleasure of hopping just across Philadelphia to chat with the amazing pianist and songwriter, Reverend Chris. Rev, how you doing today?
I'm great, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. It's really nice to see you in your library there. You had a little hint of class to this show, and Lord knows we need that. Um,
Yeah.
would you mind just kicking us off with a tune?
Sure, not a problem.
Chris, that was a great tune. Thank you so much for playing that for me. One of the things that has always kind of intrigued me about you in the Philadelphia jazz scene is that besides being a great piano player, obviously, you're just as well known as being a songwriter, which we don't see as much in especially the jazz idiom up here. You know, it's a cover man's game for a lot of it. And I know you do a lot of work in like New Orleans style jazz, but you also cross over into singer songwriter and all that. So I'm curious first, like how you really got into the style of jazz that you play, because it's not necessarily what everyone's playing these days, and obviously a style that's really close to my heart. So what brought you to that?
That's a great question, and it's an answer I like to share with new bandmates too, because it's important. Um, so the decade I spent, just under a decade I spent in New Orleans, I learned something, and it was a lot of original music. I mean, there was the whole, cliche of you go to Bourbon Street, you're going to hear Mustang Sally. If you go to, the trad jazz bars, you're going to hear Limehouse Blues. Yes, that's true, but what I got out of it was meeting these incredible musicians who many times work together as a group under different names. And you might see the same guys at one place, the same band led by the sax player playing original swing music on a Tuesday. And on Thursday, you could go to a different place and it's the bass player's band, same guys, and they're doing original like funk and like R&B, and that really appealed to me. And that's kind of was a culture shock for me when I came up here and started hanging out with people and playing in different types of bands. You know, I did a little bit of the jazz, a little bit of the, you know, the funk, a little bit of the cover band classic rock thing, and it was very different because I didn't experience a lot of that originality immediately. Since then, I've found a very cool circle of people that, you know, share that mindset. But
I mean, finding the right players is definitely such
yeah,
a part of that.
yeah,
You need that inspiration.
yeah. It's like our mutual friend Emmett Druding is one of those that I enjoy.
Yeah, Emmett was actually the first guest I ever had on this show, and what a songwriter and what a phenomenal artist as well. Love that guy.
Yeah, but that's really like how I thought about it. Like, why would I don't want to spend money to hear somebody play something that I can hear Ella Fitzgerald or you know, Dave Brubeck or even like Bill Withers do better. Why would I pay?
You're not going to blow a Coltrane solo better than Coltrane did. Let's be honest about that. And I think, you know, I mean, it's always, do you feel that being a songwriter and composer as well as just a player helps inform and make progress in your playing itself?
I think so, yes, because when you write something that you've never heard before, it's something you've also never played before.
Yeah.
So sometimes two chords next to each other, it's like that's not supposed to work, but it does for whatever's in your head melodically, and now you got to learn how to play it.
Right. Yeah, and that's one of those things. It's like we think about, you know, the technique side of an instrument, but there's so much more that informs it. You know, just what's going on around us. So you talked about having the right players. If you wouldn't mind mentioning who you're playing with in town, I know who it is, but I think everyone else here should know as well who your sidemen are.
Well, since COVID, I've done a lot of duo gigs with Gustin Rudolph. We've been given the opportunity to play, I guess, about 6 times a month, which
that's amazing right now.
But it's also below average for the rest of us the rest of the time.
Yeah.
And Gustin's an incredible drummer.
Indeed.
Another
statement, possibly.
In the regular,
what gets me about when I've heard Gustin playing is he's one of the few guys in town that really can just like nail like second line and like New Orleans street beat kind of things, which is a tough style of drumming if you didn't grow up listening to it. I think 'cause it's so different from typical kit playing that we hear, especially in jazz.
It's the one time where the entire measure, the beat, is almost fluid except for the one.
Yes.
Like everything else is behind, but the one is always the one, and that's where these great technical players. I mean, it's technically perfect, but that doesn't have that feel. But I think you know what I mean. Like that.
Yeah, exactly, and it's all about the feel. That's the thing. Yeah. I mean, it's so many styles of music. Just you need that visceral reaction from it that you can't always get with just technical perfection.
I always compared it to like if you have those memories, if you're, you know, if you ever in that unfortunate situation where you can walk to your local bar, and that hazy memory when you're returning home, where you remember looking down and seeing your footsteps on the pavement.
Yes.
And it's like every fourth one, it's like that left foot, and you're hitting that, and the rest is kind of shaky back and forth. It's like, but it's
like slurring your words on a snare drum a little bit, but in a non-slop, in like the perfect sloppy way. That's the key.
Yes.
So who besides Gustin, who else do you have in the group?
Well, longtime compatriots of mine are Thomas Rasler on saxophone, flute, clarinet every now and then, and Bart Miltenberger on trumpet and flugelhorn. And Bart's one of those people that I didn't know this for 2 years of knowing him, but growing up, he was in the horn section of one of my favorite Philly bands, which was Fathead, which was kind of a you know, hip hop crossover act that existed in the 90s and the early 2000s. And that was Bart's band. I didn't know that. And that came out after knowing him for like 2 years, which was cool. On bass, Rich Curtis from the Dukes of Destiny, and also Michael Taylor on upright. So I kind of go between electric or upright, depending on who's free.
Nice. Yeah, that's, I mean, and depending what style you're in, I mean, that's a big decision certainly to make. Electric versus upright is a completely different vibe. Because I have this electric bass behind me that I haven't touched in 4 years. It just looks really pretty on the wall.
It does look pretty.
but my upright gets the work. That's the reality of the situation. And you mentioned, I mean, the guys in your band, they're not just playing with you, nor just playing the style of music that you play. They are well-versed musicians and well-rounded musicians. Which I always joke about, you know, it took me, because I'm primarily a bass player. It took me 7 years to find a bass player for my band. Because it's so tough to be able to find musicians that aren't going to just, that are still going to have their own voice, but are going to be able to follow the direction, really do what complements the music. And that takes a high level of player, which is something you've definitely succeeded in finding.
Oh, that's why I have two, is when I needed a bassist, Rich Curtis, who I've known as a friend for years from the Dukes, like he said, you know, I can finish out this year, but I can't commit to your schedule plus the Duke schedule plus his third project.
Yeah.
But I don't quit. And he made that clear. Like I'll do half of them. And then I found a guy who had the same opinion. He had a day job and said, I can't commit full time. And I said, this is kind of perfect.
Yeah.
It worked out.
Yeah, that's great to have that situation. Of course, bass players are not exactly in short supply in Philadelphia.
That's true.
I'll never, when I moved here, I got 10, 11 years ago, I moved to Philly. I moved to Southwest down like King Sessing. And my roommate had a little like Thanksgiving get together. And the first I walk in with my bass coming from a gig, and the guy I don't know opens the door, looks at you, goes, "Oh, you must be Chris. You're the new bass player. You moved to the wrong section of the town, man. We got like 15 of them in a 3-block radius." and the more I've lived here, the more I realize that's the absolute truth about this city. Is it's like the mecca for bass players. It's an incredible, but there's still somehow work for all of us, which I'll never understand.
Yeah, well, it's the versatility too, I think.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good bassists in Philadelphia. It's not just a lot of bassists.
Amen. I mean, there are people in this town who I know I'll never be on the caliber of, and that's a beautiful thing to know, that there are just top tier players and on every instrument. Let's be honest, Philly is a very underrated music city, I think, by a lot of people, and it's a small scene that we have here compared to a lot, you know, New York and even New Orleans. We have a very small scene, but we have some monsters playing here. You know, yourself included. We're lucky to have all these people, and such an open community as well, which is one of the other things that I've really loved about the Philadelphia music scene. Is just,
and don't sell yourself short either. I mean, as a player, but also I actually know you mostly just from the social aspect of the music. Like we've never played together.
Right. The funny thing. Yeah.
I've found you, whether it's different festivals, different something. It's always like, well, yeah, Chris Davis-Shannon's on his way, or you're vice versa. And we've been hired for the same gig that was a mistake.
Which is fun. We get hired. Yeah. Well, hired for the same exact gig at the same time, which is but we've also, you know, we've been on like, yeah, you say the street festival stuff. We've been on bills together, and it took us a solid like 2-3 years for our paths to actually cross, although we were playing music at each other from opposite sides of the street for so many other times. And it's a funny thing. Chris, would you mind playing us another tune?
I'm sure, I'd love to.
Cool.
She pulled into town 16 years ago with enough cash to bail out her baby and go. She worked hard, keeping him next to her when sleeping over. Right place, right crime, ended with a man serving time. She wants him home right now. She feels alone, and how life can be cold. Jerry Mack was trying hard to stay clean, a difficult thing when you're part of a scene. He did a good job staying beside illegal, but a love of crack broke the back of Mac's need for needles. She wants him home right now. She feels alone, and how life can be cold. across this nation. 600 miles of truck traveled just fine, but then it stuttered and stalled when she reached the county line. She wants him home right now. She feels alone, and how life can be cool. All she wanted was to see her man free, but the gavel sentenced a decade plus 3. She found a job that might help time pass, where tips alone cover room, board and gas. She wants him home right now. She feels alone, and how life can be cold. Midnight to 6, to find her at work, slinging hash browns for night owls and jerks. Years go by, time going past and it's slower. She waits patiently for it all to be over. She wants him home right now. She feels alone, and how life can be cold.
Now, Chris is not just a pianist in his own band, but he also plays sideman for some other groups. And one of those is, in fact, a ukulele player, which we all know is something that I love. And that's Daisy Royce. So how did you end up getting hooked up and playing and writing with Daisy?
Well, you know, it's rare that a member of your band books a gig. I mean, at least for me. And
Very rare.
yeah, about 2 years ago, Gooston, the drummer we've spoken about, he said there's this new New Orleans themed bar in my neighborhood. We should totally play there as a duo. I said, sure. And then like 4 months later, he called back and said, hey, I got us a gig. It's in 2 weeks, but here's the thing. It's also New Year's Eve and the money's terrible.
Which is something you never want to hear.
And he said the New Orleans themed bar, and I looked at the menu, and I had a place in my heart, and I was like, well, how do you feel? How do you feel? It was back and forth. We did the gig, and on the bill was this of the 4 bands total, and was this young woman, Daisy Royce, and her songs just got me. They were original. They weren't my normal type of thing, but the lyrics were good. They were intelligent. Somebody that has read literature, seen film, the references were, it's like reading a Stephen King book, but that's not a horror. It's a cabaret happy song. But all these references were so vivid. I was like, this is crazy. And we started working together and put together a whole Disney tribute, actually.
Yeah, you did that over at Paris, right? Or Paris Bistro?
At least 1 or 2 private birthday parties, but it's the music of Disney from like 1937 until like 2015.
Yeah, admit, you can't knock the Sherman Brothers, right? I mean, what phenomenal writing in those early Disney.
Churchill was there a lot too.
Yeah.
I forget his first name, but he wrote a lot of those early ones, and the Sherman Brothers and Alan Menken and Tim Rice by the 90s. But yes.
Yeah, it's just consistently great music. There's so many Disney songs that I love just playing outside of just in a normal set. I mean, sometimes just stand up as great tunes.
Yeah, no, they really do. I mean, like Miles Davis, I had a lot of miles with "Someday My Prince Will Come," but and actually the act is named after it's the Dave Brubeck record, Dave Digs Disney, which is a great record. His version of Hi Ho is almost funky. It's so cool, but we call it Daisy Digs Disney. And it's based, which is great for like Moana, which is all ukulele anyway, and that musical. And we have a lot of fun with it.
Oh, that's awesome. And you guys, well, Daisy, and you're also on it, just released a new record recently as well, right?
Daisy did. It's called Series of 2-Week Love Stories. It's a kind of a very autobiographic journey through her love life, and it's very honest, and it's amazing. It's very good. It's very cool. Check it out. It has a little punk rock. It has some folk. It has some Ricky Lee Jones, some Ani DeFranco. It's kind of all over the place, but it's with a very honest female singer-songwriter vein.
Yeah, and I'll link to that down below as well, so everyone can check out that record along with Chris's albums that he has out, so you can hear exactly what we're talking about, especially with the full band. Chris is a great pianist, but when you hear with the band, it's definitely a different vibe with the rhythm section behind you. Oh,
that was also something when you write notes for horns and when you're singing something, and I'm not the best singer, but I think I'm good, but I'm not the best. And when you hear those horns do the rhythmic hits or the harmonies, it's like, that's exactly what I wanted. I made that, I painted that, and they executed it. It's so cool.
That's a beautiful feeling, isn't it? Arrangements for instruments that you don't play, and then you get in the studio and it works and it sounds great, and you're like, I did it. I finally did it. You and Daisy you have been performing together a little bit during this shutdown time, but you actually have a concert coming up soon, right?
Yes, it's going to be it started as kind of a joke conversation, and before COVID it was going to be more of an actual filmed holiday special, and like the old, if you remember the old, one of my favorite things in the world, in my mind I was thinking like that Jack Benny special where he's in the department store all day and he keeps buying and returning something to poor Mel Blanc, but it was supposed to be something like that. But what we're doing now is, because of the recent restrictions, it's going to be a Zoom thing, and it's going to be us talking on Zoom about the holidays and holiday wishes and feelings and family and all this stuff, and then interspersed with some performances from people all across the map that she's booked.
Oh, cool. Almost like a little variety show going.
Yes. Yeah. You're like, well, you know what? Let's go hear the emo band from South Philly. Oh, let's cut over to the gypsy jazz duo in Jenkintown. That kind of thing. And it's going to go around, and we'll see how it works out. It's in the planning stages right now, but we're looking to air that on Christmas Eve on like a Facebook Live or even Zoom. Info will be on the Facebook page, probably.
Okay, yeah, and we'll link down to that below so everyone can find this on Christmas Eve. If you need something to do, since I know a lot of us are not going to be able to see our family this year, which is a bummer, but we do what we have to do to keep everyone alive. If you're looking for something to do on Christmas Eve, why not tune in and listen to some music and some stories? I think that's the best we can do, right?
Yeah, please do.
Chris, would you mind playing us one final tune?
I'm not a problem, and thank you for having me.
Rev Chris, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join me. And for everyone listening, I'm going to link to all the albums we've been talking about, as well as Chris's website, where you can find out where he's playing, even if it's online, and where you can purchase his record. So again, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, and to the audience, thank you for listening.
Yeah, man. If you wouldn't mind, if you could just play us a little exit music, it'd be greatly appreciated.
You got it. This is the Frenchman Street Stomp.